The Midnight Spark. July 13, 1945. 2:17 a.m. The machine shop buried under the scrub oak hills of Los Alamos, New Mexico. The air hangs thick like breathing through wet wool, chilled by the desert night seeping under the Quonset hut's corrugated skin, laced with the acrid bite of solder, flux, and machine oil. Fluorescent bulbs buzz overhead, casting jagged shadows that dance like specters across concrete floors scarred by years of frantic invention. No windows, no clocks. Just the relentless tick of a Geiger counter, its clicks a Morse code heartbeat in the gloom. Joe Harlan wipes sweat from his brow with a rag that smells of yesterday's cigarettes, his calloused fingers leaving a smear of grease on his forehead. 42 years old, built like a bridge girder, broad shoulders from 20 years welding hulls on Liberty ships in Brooklyn yards, he hunches over the workbench. His eyes, shielded by a leather mask, peer through the blue-white flame of his oxyacetylene torch. The flame hisses, a serpent's whisper, as it kisses the edge of a steel tamper ring, one of the bomb's inner guardians. Sparks erupt in a furious cascade, orange embers scattering like fireflies drunk on fury, dying quick against the lead bricks stacked around them. You can almost feel the heat bloom against your skin, that fall summer and winter's grip, warring with the chill that claws at your neck. Harlan's breath fogs the inside of his mask, steady, controlled. One tremor, one slip, and this whole damn thing goes up, not in glory, but in a criticality flash that turns men to ghosts before they hit the floor. That's what they whisper in the mess hall. The eggheads upstairs with their slide rules and Einstein equations call it prompt neutron multiplication. Down here in the sweat and the solder, it's just death wearing a lab coat. The door creaks open behind him, a sliver of hallway light slicing the dark. Footsteps, soft, deliberate, echo off the walls. Three figures slip in, ghosts in white coveralls, their faces obscured by respirators that bulge like frog throats. They carry lead-lined casks heavy as sin slung between them on canvas straps that bite into shoulders. No names spoken. Not tonight. Harlan doesn't look up. He knows them by the way they move. Tommy Ruiz, the kid from the Bronx machine shops, all elbows and nerves at 23. Lena Voss, ex-Rosie the Riveter from Detroit, her hands steady as a surgeon's despite the fire in her eyes. And Big Mike Kowalski, the Polish giant from Chicago steel mills, who once arm-wrestled a foreman for a week's pay and won. "Core's here," Ruiz mutters, voice muffled, setting his end of the cask down with a thud that vibrates through Harlan's boots. The Geiger counter spikes click 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 like a telegraph operator on bad coffee. Voss shoots at a glance, her gloved hand hovering over the dosimeter clipped to her chest. "Radiation's nominal, for now," Kowalski grunts, wiping his brow, his massive frame casting a shadow that swallows the workbench whole. "Nominal, that's what they said about the last test pit." Guy and Hamford's still puking green. Harlan kills the torch with a twist of the valve, the flame snuffing out like a snuffed candle. Darkness rushes in, broken only by the red glow of the cooling metal. He flips up his mask, revealing a face etched like old leather, deep lines from squinting into flames, a scar across his left cheek from a 42-yard accident that cost him half his hearing in one ear. "Stow it, Mike. We ain't Hanford. We're the end of the line." His voice is gravel Brooklyn through and through, the kind that cuts through fog. He nods to the cask. "Open her up slow." They call themselves the Suicide Squad, though no one said it aloud in weeks. It started as a joke back in April when Oppenheimer himself toured the shops and paused at Harlan's bench, eyeing the prototype tamper welds. "Gentleman and lady," he'd said, that faint British clip in his voice like a razor wrapped in silk. "You're handling the devil's own puzzle. One wrong bond and you'll light up the mesa brighter than the 4th of July. Ruiz had cracked wise. "Hell, Doc, we're already dead men walking." "Might as well call us the Suicide Squad." Laughter then, brittle as dry mesquite. But the name stuck, whispered in bunkhouses, etched into tool handles. Because they know the truth, plutonium doesn't forgive. It seeps into your bones, paints your insides with invisible fire. Dosimeters lie, bodies don't. Voss cracks the cask's latches, the sound like bones popping in the quiet. Hinges whine, and there it is, the heart of the beast. The plutonium core, a fist-sized sphere of Pu-239 alloy gleaming dully under the fluorescence, wrapped in a nickel sleeve that's thinner than a man's hope. It's warm to the touch, even through lead gloves, radiating not just heat, but that insidious alpha particles that chew through flesh like acid rain. Harlan leans in close enough to smell the metallic tang like fresh blood on a lathe. "Beautiful," he breathes, not to them but to the thing itself, and mean as a snake. The squad moves like a well-oiled press gang. Ruiz positions the core in the assembly jig, a lattice of steel and boron to keep neutrons from wandering. Voss threads the initiator wire, a polonium-beryllium trigger fragile as a watch spring through the access port, her fingers dancing in the glove's cumbersome bulk. Kowalski hefts the tamper ring Harlan just finished, sliding it over the core with the delicacy of a man threading a needle in the dark. "Align it," Harlan says, voice low. "Quarter turn left on the index pin. We weld the seam blind, no peeking till it's set." The torch reignites, its roar filling the hut like a cornered animal. Harlan guides the flame along the seam, metal yielding, fusing under the intense blue kiss. Sparks fly again, but this time they're tamed, a controlled inferno. Sweat beads on his neck, trickling under the collar, stinging like betrayal. The Geiger counter chatters faster, click, 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 a rising tide. Voss monitors it, her lips moving in silent prayer, half Spanish, half curse. Holding at 0.8 rem per hour, she reports, but her eyes say different. Too close, too damn close. Minutes stretch to eternity. The weld seals a perfect silver scar around the core's equator. Harlan pulls back, extinguishes the flame. Silence crashes in, broken only by heavy breaths and the counter's slowing pulse. They stare at it, the first complete bomb core, Rufus they call it in the logs, but to them it's the Endbringer, the thing that could crack the world open. Ruiz breaks the quiet first, peeling off his respirator, his young face slick with sweat. "We did it, Joe, it's whole!" A grin cracks his lips, boyish, defiant. Kowalski claps Voss on the back, gentle as a bear with a cub. "Yeah, and we're still breathing." Harlan doesn't smile. He stares at the core, now cradled in its lead sarcophagus, the squad sealing it shut with practiced snaps. His mind drifts to Brooklyn, to Marie waiting tables at the diner, to little Eddie with his model airplanes and dreams of flying aces. What would he say if he knew that his old man was welding Armageddon in a desert hole? As they wheel the cask toward the assembly bay door, the first hint of dawn bleeds under the hut's edge, pink, innocent, mocking. Upstairs, the physicists wait, hungry for their toy. But Harlan pauses, hand on the latch. A shadow flickers in the hallway light, not one of theirs. A figure, tall and angular, pipe smoke curling like a question mark. Oppenheimer watching. What does the father of the bomb see in the eyes of the man who birthed its heart? And why does Harlan's gut twist like the world just tilted on its axis? The father's gaze. Oppie's pipe glows like a distant star in the hallway murk, cherry embers flaring as he draws deep, the tobacco's sweet bitter haze curling toward the rafters. J. Robert Oppenheimer, tall, gaunt, his black hair slicked back like a raven's wing, eyes sharp as fission fragments behind wire-rimmed specs, steps into the shop's threshold without a word. The squad freezes mid-motion, Ruiz's hand on the cask's wheel, Voss's glove still hovering over the seal, Kowalski's bulk half-turned, muscles coiled like a spring under his coveralls. Harlan meets the gaze first, unflinching, the core's warmth still phantom-hot in his palms. "You've given her a spine," Oppenheimer says, voice a low timbre laced with that Berkeley drawl softened by Cambridge ghosts. He doesn't approach the bench, respects the invisible mode of radiation or maybe the squad's sweat-soaked sanctity. Instead, he leans against the doorframe, pipe stem clenched between teeth yellowed by late nights and black coffee. "Harlan, the tamper's weld clean as a scalpel's cut. I saw the blueprints this morning. Flawless." Flawless, the word lands like a dud shell in Harlan's chest. He strips off his gloves, fingers numb from the cold steel, and tosses them onto the bench with a wet slap. "Flawless don't mean safe, Doc. That seems holding plutonium that's hotter than Hades. One micro crack and we're all ash in the wind." His Brooklyn bark echoes off the lead walls, sharper than intended. The others shift, Ruiz averts his eyes, Voss crosses her arms, Kowalski mutters something Polish under his breath that sounds like a ward against evil. Oppenheimer exhales smoke, a slow dragon's breath that mingles with the flux residue. You can almost taste it on your tongue, clove and latakia undercut by the lab's eternal ozone tang. "Safe," he echoes, savoring the word like a bitter pill. "There's a poetry in the peril, Joe. Vishnu, destroyer and renewer. We're midwives to a new epic." His eyes flick to the cask now shrouded in canvas, the squad wheeling it inch by inch toward the shadowed alcove where the high-explosive lenses wait. But it's Harlan he watches, probing, as if reading the welds in the welder's soul. The gut twist deepens, a vice of iron and regret. Harlan's seen men die in yards, crushed under keels, burned in weld flashes, but this is forging the unforgeable, binding elements that God kept sundered since creation's dawn. Back in 42, when the call came from Washington, some suit in a pinstripe suit, voiced like old gears. "We need your hands for the big one, Harlan. Shipyards can wait." He thought it was another destroyer hull, not this. Not a sphere of hellfire that could glass Tokyo in a blink. Marie's letters burn in his pocket, unread since supper. Eddie aced his spelling bee, Joe. Says his pa's building ships to bring you home. If only. Poetry, Harlan snorts, leaning against the jig, the metal cool through his shirt. "Last week Tommy here lost a fingernail to a boron splinter. Lena's got alpha burns on her knuckles that itch like the devil. And Mike hauled contaminated slag from the ravine, says he dreams of the stuff glowing in his veins." He jerks a thumb at Kowalski, who nods slow, his face a slab of granite, eyes hollowed by Hanford memories. The big man had come west after the B-reactor meltdown scare, skin still mottled from beta scalds, whispering to Harlan one night over bootleg whiskey. It's eating me from inside, Joey, like termites in oak. Oppenheimer's pipe pauses midair, the ember dimming. For a heartbeat, the shop's hum, the distant whine of ventilators sucking alpha ghosts from the air, feels louder, accusatory. I know the toll, he says finally, softer now, the physicist's armor cracking. He steps closer, boots scuffing concrete, and pulls a crumpled memo from his lab coat, yellowed onion skin, stamped top secret in red that bleeds like blood. Groves wired from DC this afternoon. The target's locked, 2 birds, 1 stone. End it before the boys on Okinawa bleed out. His voice drops, conspiratorial. But the core, your core, it's the fulcrum. Without it, we're just throwing firecrackers at the Emperor's door. Ruiz pipes up then, voice cracking like a boy's at his first shave. Sir, with respect, fulcrum, we're the ones turning the screw. What if it fizzles? Or worse, what if it works too good? The kid's hands tremble as he adjusts the cask straps, dosimeter beeping a lazy protest. Voss shoots him a look shut at Tommy, but her own eyes betray the fear, the what-ifs that haunt the women's barracks, bobbies with 2 heads, deserts blooming with twisted scrub. Oppenheimer turns to Ruiz, specs glinting under the fluorescence. Fizzle, we've modeled it 1,000 ways, Fermi's pilot Chicago proved the chain. But too good, he trails off, staring at the cask like it's Medusa's head. You can feel the weight of it then, the invisible yoke, 6.2 kilograms of Pu 239, enough to birth 20 kilotons of fury, to etch shadows on Hiroshima walls where men once stood. That's why you're the squad, the unbreakables. Harlan's welds, Lena's threads, Mike's heft, Tommy's precision, they're the poetry I can't equation. The squad exchanges glances, wary, warmed by the rare praise. Kowalski rumbles a laugh, deep as thunder in a barrel chest. Unbreakable's hut, tell that to my liver, doc, it's pickling faster than sauerkraut. Tension fractures, a ripple of chuckles, but Harlan doesn't join. He pushes off the bench, circles the cask once, hand trailing the canvas like a blind man reading Braille. The core inside hums, or seems to, a subsonic throb through the lead, neutrons plotting their rebellion. All right, Harlan says, clapping his hands once, the sound a gunshot in the hush. Wheel her to Bay 3, explosive boys are waiting, don't want Beth chewing our asses for tardiness. The squad nods, resuming the push, wheels squeaking like old bones. Oppenheimer lingers, pipe relit, smoke veiling his face. As Harlan passes, the director's hand shoots out, not a clasp, but a grip on the shoulder, firm, paternal. Joe, after this, after we light the gadget, there'll be questions, from Washington. From the world, but remember, you didn't build the bomb, you built the end of one. The words hang, heavy as depleted uranium. Harlan shrugs off the hand, gentle but final, and shoulders the door open. Dawn's light spills in now, full-throated gold over the mesa, painting the scrub in false promise. The squad rolls the cask into the glare, shadows stretching long behind them like accusations. Oppenheimer watches from the threshold, pipe forgotten, ash tumbling to the floor. But as the door swings shut, sealing the shop's secrets once more, Harlan catches a flicker in Oppie's eyes. Not triumph, not dread, but something rawer, envy, or the first crack in a god's facade. And in the distance, from the test site's edge, a low rumble builds, not thunder, but the earth movers growl, prepping the Trinity Tower for its unholy baptism. What secrets does the father whisper to himself in the empty shop, as the welders' squad marches toward the fire? The beast awakens. The earth mover's growl swells, a guttural bellow rolling across the mesa like the belly rumble of some primordial thing stirring from sleep. Dust devils whirl in its wake, red ochre ghosts dancing over sagebrush brittle as old bones, carrying the scent of creosote and cordite from the test site's scarred cradle 10 miles south. Harlan shields his eyes against the rising sun, a blood-orange disk cresting the Sangre de Cristo peaks, painting the cask's canvas in hellish stripes. The squad pushes on, wheels juddering over gravel paths that snake between plywood barracks and chain-link fences topped with razor coils, Los Alamos veins, poolsing with secrets too heavy for the wind to whisper. Bay 3 squats at the compound's edge, a squat bunker of reinforced concrete half sunk into the hillside, its blast doors yawning like a whale's maw. MPs in olive drab Thompson submachine guns slung low snap to attention as the squad approaches. Clearance, one barks, eyes flicking to the cask, then Harlan's sweat-streaked face. Harlan squad lead, Rufus delivery, he replies, voice flat as hammered steel, flashing his brass tag under the sun's glare. The guard nods, waves them through with a gloved hand that smells of gun oil and chewing tobacco. No smiles here, no good mornings, just the grind of gears as the doors grind shut behind them, sealing out the world in a pneumatic hiss. Inside, the air shifts, thicker, charged like the hush before a welder's arc strikes. High bays arch overhead, strung with gantry cranes that dangle like iron spiders, their hooks empty now but hungry. Workbenches line the walls, littered with Composition B charges, pentolite slabs molded into parabolic lenses, each a precise curve of high explosive designed to squeeze the core's plutonium into supernova density. The squad's boots echo on the epoxy floor, polished to a sheen that mirrors their strained faces. Ruiz whistles low, the sound swallowed quick, Christ, it's like walking into a powder keg with a lit match in your pocket. Voss elbows him sharp. Stow the hymns, kid, echoes Carrie. At the center stands the pit, a circular depression 10 feet across, lined with cork and lead sheeting, lit from below by floodlamps that bathe everything in a sterile white glow. It's the womb for the gadget, the bomb's skeletal frame already half-assembled. The uranium tamper shell, a pumpkin-sized orb of U-238 riddled with voids for the explosive bouquet. The beryllium reflector, a silver donut to bounce neutrons back into the fray. And the X-unit initiator, its polonium vials glinting like venom sacs under glass. Hansbeth hovers at the pit's edge, the German emigre's white hair a halo under the lamps, clipboard clutched like a shield. His team, physicists in bow ties and rolled sleeves, faces gaunt from chain-smoking Chesterfields, hustle around him, murmuring in clipped Teutonic bursts, Die Linz muss symmetrisch sein, ja, der Druckgradient. Beth looks up as the cask rolls to a halt, his blue eyes sharpening behind half-moons. Ah, the heart arrives, gentleman and Freilein Voss punktlich as ever. His accent rolls the R's like distant artillery. He gestures to the pit with a flourish, but there's no joy in it, just the precision of a man dissecting fate. We begin the marriage, the core to the tamper, then the lenses, 32 fast ones, 64 slow. One asymmetry and poof, no boom, only blush. He mimes a weak pop with thumb and forefinger, but his smile doesn't reach his eyes. You can almost hear the unspoken, the blush that killed mock-ups in 44, scattering shrapnel through test bays, leaving techs with stumps where fingers should be. Harlan nods, signaling the squad into motion. Kowalski unlatches the cask with hands that could crumple a fender, lifting the lead shroud like it's a baptismal font. The core emerges, cradled in boron foam, its nickel skin catching the floods in a dull gleam. A collective breath holds, Ruiz's dosimeter chirps once, twice, then steadies. Radiation baseline, Voss announces, clipping readings to her board, her voice steady but fingers white-knuckled on the pen. They lower it into the pit on silk ropes, the descent slow as a funeral pall, the crane's motor whining a dirge. Beth directs from above, ease her in a line to the fiducials, Dre centimeter clearance. The core seats with a soft clunk, nestling into the tamper's embrace like a bullet in its chamber. Harlan circles the pit, eyes tracing the mating surfaces, the welds he'd kissed with flame hours before, now guardians against the void. She's bedded, he calls up. Beth nods and the physicists swarm, threading detonator wires through ceramic insulators, calibrating Krytron switches that will fire the lenses in a symphony of microseconds. Sparks fly from soldering irons, not Harlan's torch this time, but precise points of blue that solder caps to blasting caps, each a whisper of death. You can feel the beast stirring then, the assembly humming with latent fury. The air tastes metallic, ozone sharp from the argon shields, undercut by the sweet nitro reek of the explosives. Kowalski hefts the first lens assembly, a pentagonal slab of composition B veined with copper tampers, slotting it into the outer ring with grunts that echo like a blacksmith's forge. Heavy bastard, he mutters, sweat carving rivers down his neck, soaking his collar dark. One by one they place them. Fast lenses of HMX-laced baritol for the compression wave's edge, slow ones of PBX 9404 to cradle the bloom. Voss threads the EBW detonators, exploding bridgewire, they call them, her touch featherlight, breath held as she twists the final connection. Synced, she says, and Ruiz tests the circuit with a dry fire. A faint pop from the console, lights winking green across the board. Hours bleed away unmarked, no clocks here, just the sun's march tracked through ventilation slits, shifting shadows like a sundial of doom. The squad rotates shifts, but no one leaves. Harlan perches on a stool, nursing black coffee gone cold, watching Beth's team calibrate the arming plug, a selenium safety that will bridge the gap only at 30,000 feet over Japan. Doubts gnaw at him worm-like. What if the lenses warp under the rack? What if the initiator's polonium decays mid-drop, fizzling the chain before it starts? Marie's face swims up unbidden, her laugh like summer rain on tin, Eddie's gap-toothed grin over pancakes. For them, he whispers to no one, but Ruiz hears, glances over with eyes too old for 23. Midday brings the revelation, sharp as a bayonet twist. Beth straightens from the pit, clipboard trembling in his grip. Gentlemen, Freilein, the gadget breathes. Full assembly complete, mass 4,600 kilograms, yield projected at 17 kilotons, give or take the grace of God. He pauses, voice cracking on the last, and for a moment the bay falls cathedral silent, save the ventilator's sigh. The physicists clap, sparse, awkward, then disperse to logbooks and labs, leaving the squad alone with their progeny. Harlan leans over the pit, staring down at the sphere, matte black now, pocked with wires and vents, the fins folded like a dragon's wings. It's no longer Rufus, the core, it's little boy's ugly cousin, fat man in embryo, named for the physicist's quip, but to Harlan it's the Widowmaker. Kowalski breaks the spell, clapping Harlan's back with a meaty paw. We built a monster, Joey, one that bites back. Laughter bubbles, ragged but dies quick. Voss traces a finger along the safety wire, her face pale under the fluorescence. And tomorrow, Trinity, they truck her south at dusk. The word hangs Trinity, the tower rising on the Jornada del Muerto, the journey of death, where they'll hoist this beast 100 feet up and pray to St. Barbara for a clean spar. As the squad seals the pit with cork lids and canvas tarps prepping for the convoy, a siren wails outside, brief, piercing the all-clear after a false radiation blip. But Harlan freezes, ear cocked to the half-deaf side, not the siren. A deeper thrum from the hills, rotors chopping air heavy inbound. A C-54 Skymaster, belly fat with charts and brass from Washington, circling for landing. Groves, the general himself, come to inspect his devil's egg. What iron words will the bulldog of the project growl over the squad's handiwork? And will they mask the tremor in his own voice, the fear that this fire might consume the hand that lights it? The bulldog's bite. The C-54's props chew the sky into tatters, a four-engine snarl that rattles the bay's blast doors like loose fillings in a molar. Dust sifts through the vents, coating tongues with grit as the squad pauses mid-tarp, faces upturned to the ceiling's steel ribs. Harlan spits into a rag, wiping his mouth, tastes like chalk and regret. Brass, he mutters, low enough for the others. Kowalski crosses himself, quick and furtive, the Polish in him clinging to old saints against new devils. Voss smooths her coveralls, tucking a stray auburn curl behind her ear, while Ruiz fidgets with his dosimeter, the beep a nervous tick in the thickening air. The doors grind open again, flooding the bay with midday glare that bounces off the pit's tarps like skipped stones on a pond. General Leslie Groves steps through first stocky as a fireplug, jowls quivering under a peaked cap, his olive uniform strained at the seams from a desk warrior's paunch. 50 years old, bulldog face carved from Pennsylvania coal country, eyes like chipped flint under bushy brows. Behind him, a phalanx of aides, majors with briefcases chained to wrists, colonels with maps unrolled like surrender flags, all reeking of aftershave and airplane varnish. Oppenheimer trails last, pipe unlit now, his lab coat swapped for a tweed jacket that hangs loose on his frame, a scholar playing soldier. Attention, an aide barks, but Groves waves it off with a ham-sized hand, cigar clamped between teeth that chew it more than smoke it. The squad snaps to Harlan Ramrod straight chin up, the welders slouch banished, Kowalski's bulk looming like a silo, Voss and Ruiz shoulder to shoulder, the kids' Adam's apple bobbing. Groves' gaze rakes them, appraising, not unkind but unyielding, the look of a man who's buried friends in Flanders mud and won't bury more to bureaucracy. At ease, people. This ain't West Point. His voice booms, Jersey growl honed on parade grounds, laced with the faint wheeze of a chainsmoker fighting emphysema. He strides to the pit's edge, boots thudding authority, and yanks back a tarp corner with a meaty tug. The gadget stares up, inert but brooding, its black skin a quilt of explosives and wiring, the core's lethal pulse hidden deep. Groves leans in, close enough for the nitro tang to curl his nostrils, cigar ash tumbling onto the cork lining like dirty snow. Well, I'll be damned, he rumbles, straightening with a grunt that pops his knees. Oppie said you jarheads made her purr, but this here's a thoroughbred killer. He claps once, the sound cracking like a .45, and turns to Harlan, jabbing a finger thick as a breech block. You, welder Harlan Wright, show me the guts. Harlan steps forward, gut knotting tighter than a mooring line in a gale. He's faced foremen with stopwatches and shipyard bosses with pink slips, but Groves, the man who greenlit the project's black budget, who bulldozed eminent domain over New Mexico ranchers like they were anthills, this is the architect of apocalypse, cigar ash and all. Guts are sealed, General, Harlan says, voice steady as he can forge it. Cores welded in, PU 239 alloy, tamper ring at 98% density. Lenses are Beth's bobbies, symmetric to a micron. He gestures to the assembly, tracing air over the detonator clusters, feeling the squad's eyes on his back like spot welds. Groves harumphed, circling the pit slow, aides scribbling furious in steno pads. You can almost smell the tension then, sweat and explosive residue mingling with the general's bay rum cologne, a cocktail fit for Judgment Day. Oppenheimer hovers at the periphery, hands folded, his silence a counterpoint to Groves' bluster, the poet yielding to the pragmatist. Symmetric, Groves echoes, poking at a fin with his cigar tip, leaving a scorch mark like a brand. Good, last mock-up in 44 went squirrely, lenses imploded uneven, turned the test slab to Swiss cheese. Lost 2 techs to flying glass. He pauses, eyes locking on Voss, who meets them square, her riveter's chin lifted. You the threader, wiring the triggers? Yes, sir, Voss replies, crisp as a salute, though her palms slick the canvas strap she clutches. EBW circuits, Crytron backups, firing sequences timed to 50 microseconds, wavefront convergence at the core. She's Detroit steel through and through, but up close, the fine tremor in her voice betrays the nights spent scrubbing alpha burns with baking soda, wondering if her eggs carry the poison now. Groves nods, a bull approving a matador. Smart work. Washington's breathing down my neck. Truman wants results before the Japs dig in deeper on Kyushu. He puffs the cigar, blue smoke wreathing his head like a nimbus of brimstone, and glances at the aides, who nod in sync like bobbleheads. Operation Downfall's a meat grinder, million casualties projected, give or take the Emperor's mercy. This fat boy, she'll spare the boys that bloodbath. But there's a hitch in the growl, a flicker in the flint eyes, doubt, or the ghost of a farm boy from Orange, Texas, who enlisted in 17 dreaming of glory, not genocide. Ruiz shifts, boots scraping epoxy, and Groves zeroes in like radar. You son, Bronx accent machine shop, the kid nods, swallowing hard. Yes sir, jigs and alignments general, kept the tolerances to 0.001 inch. Groves chuckles, a rumble from the depths. Hell, that's tighter than my ex-wife's alimony. Good, Fermi's pile was theory, you mugs made it hardware. He claps Ruiz on the shoulder hard enough to jolt the kid forward and turns to Kowalski, eyeing the giant like a side of beef. And you, big fella, hauling the heavy iron. Kowalski grunts, dipping his head. Yes sir, tamper shells, reflector plates from the foundry runs at Oak Ridge. His voice is gravel over thunder, but Harlan catches the undercurrent, the Hanford shadow, the dreams of glowing veins. Groves senses it too, or smells it, and softens a notch, cigar gesturing loose. Heard about the beer reactor hiccup, tough sledding, but you kept the juice flowing, reactor rods don't tune themselves. A beat, then quieter, almost private. My boys in the Corps lost good men to rad burns in the Pacific. You squad types, you're the unsung. Medals, Washington forgets the grunts who load the guns. The bay quiets, the ventilators hum a confessional whisper. Oppenheimer shifts, clearing his throat like a pebble in a stream. General, the convoy preps at 1800. Trinity Towers guide Bainbridge has the diagnostics running. Groves waves him off, but his eyes linger on the pit, the gadget's bulk a slumbering colossus. Yeah, detonate at dawn, July 16. Watch the shockwave ripple the sand to glass. He stubs the cigar on his boot sole, grinding it out with a twist that speaks of beaches taken at bayonet point. Then to the squad, you 4 Suicide Squad they call you, damn fool name, but fitting, get some chow then saddle up. You're riding shotgun south, if she farts on the road you're the plumbers. Dismissed with a nod, the brass sweeps out, aides trailing memos like breadcrumbs. The doors seal with a clang, leaving echoes in the faint scorch of tobacco. Harlan exhales, slow, the knot in his gut uncoiling just enough to breathe. Plumbers, he echoes, a wry twist to his lips. Kowalski barks a laugh, real this time, echoing off the bays. Hell, Joey, I'd take a leaky faucet over this beast any day. Voss smiles faint, rolling her shoulders to shake the general's stare, while Ruiz sags against a crate, dosimeter forgotten. He didn't chew us out, thought we'd get the riot act for the weld tolerances. But Harlan's not laughing. He stares at the tarp now resealed, the gadgets outline a pregnant shadow under canvas. Groves' words burrow deep, spare the boys the bloodbath. Okinawa's headlines scream in his mind, 600 Marines vaporized on Sugarloaf Hill, bodies stacked like cordwood. Is this mercy, or madness trading island pyres for city infernos? Marie's letters crinkle in his pocket again, Eddie's scrawl. Drawed a bomber today, poet drops eggs on bad guys. If only eggs dropped flowers, not fire. As the squad gathers tools for the convoy, strapping the cask to a flatbed deuce and a half, checking tire pressures against the mesa's rutted veins, a jeep coughs to life outside, tires spitting gravel. Beth leans from the passenger seat, white hair whipping in the wind, shouting over the engine. Harlan, weather's clearing, winds off the Sacramento 10 knots. Trinity's go. The truck's canvas flaps in the breeze, the gadget lashed secure, a reluctant passenger to its own christening. But as Harlan climbs aboard, shotgun beside Kowalski at the wheel, a radio crackles to life in the cab, static-laced Morse from DC urgent, VE Day echoes fading but Pacific fronts hardening. Stalin's spies whisper in the wind and Tokyo's factories churn zeros like a hive. What if the beast awakens too soon on the road south, and the Suicide Squad becomes its first pyre? Road to reckoning. The deuce and a half lurches south out of Los Alamos as dusk bleeds the sky to bruise purple. Its 6 tires knowing the rutted blacktop like teeth on gristle. Harlan rides high in the shotgun seat, elbow hooked over the door, wind whipping through the open window to scour his face raw, carrying the high desert bite of pinon pine and sun-baked arroyo, laced now with the faint, insidious whiff of the canvas-shrouded beast in the bed behind. Kowalski hunches over the wheel, his massive paws dwarfing the grips, knuckles white as he downshifts around a hairpin bend that drops sheer into the Rio Grande Gorge. Roads like a snake with indigestion, he grumbles, the truck springs groaning protest. In the rearview, Voss and Ruiz bounce on the bench amid tool crates and lead pigs, the kid clutching a Geiger counter that chatters like a drunk canary over every pothole jolt. Headlights carve tunnels through the gloaming, twin spears pinning jackrabbits in mid-leap. their eyes flashing copper panic before they bolt into creosote shadows. No other traffic, not on this stretch, the old Spanish trail from Santa Fe to the Jornada, a vein the armies claimed for its blackest blood. Escorts flanked them, a jeep ahead with a .50 cal Nest, two more tailing, their spotlights sweeping the scrub like searchlights over a midnight sea. MPs sweat under helmets, M1 carbines across laps, eyes peeled for spies, Soviet ghosts, they whisper, or Navajo scouts turned informants. Harlan's seen the memos, Futch the Brit mathematician, loose lips in the lab, or worse, the kitchen staff with ears to the walls. One leak and the convoy's a sitting duck for a Studebaker full of dynamite. You can feel the road's pulse then, thrumming up through the chassis, a living thing, the Jornada del Muerto uncoiling like the devil's own spine. Death's Journey, the conquistadors named it, for the bleached bones of mules and men littering the white sands, victims of thirst and mirage. Now it's the Army's graveyard for secrets, the truck's cargo a heavier curse than any Apache hex. Harlan lights a lucky strike, the match flare blooming brief in the cab, smoke curling out to mingle with exhaust, acrid comforting, a ward against the what-ifs gnawing his ribs. What if a weld pops under vibration? What if the core's heat warps a lens, turning compression to chaos? Marie's latest letter folds in his breast pocket, ink smudged from his thumb. Weather's turning, Joe, Eddie's got the croup again. Come home before the leaves fall. Leaves in Brooklyn, gold and rot. Here, only thorns and the promise of glass. Kowalski glances over the truck, fishtailing on loose gravel, headlights catching a kite slink along the shoulder, lean, yellow-eyed belly full of who knows what. You hear the scuttlebutt, Joey. Oppie's quoting scripture now. I am become death, destroyer of worlds, from some Hindu book. His voice rumbles low, Polish lilt thickening with the dark. Makes a man wonder if we're midwives or murderers. Harlan exhales smoke, watching it shred in the slipstream. We're welders, Mike, we join what's broke. If the brass says this mends the war, but the words trail hollow as a spent casing. Back in the bed, Voss shouts over the roar, something about Ruiz dozing off, the kid's head lolling against a crate, dosimeter beeping lazy rhythm. Tommy, eyes up, radiation flux at 0.2, but if we hit a wash, her voice cuts, riveter sharp. But Harlan hears the undercurrent, the itch on her knuckles, the alpha ghosts that won't wash out. Hours grind by, marked by the dashboard's radium glow, 9:47 p.m. when the gorge spits them onto the flats, the endless white of the Chilarosa Basin unfolding like a shroud under stars thick as buckshot. The truck's engine labors, a steady growl climbing the subtle rise toward ground zero, the air turning furnace dry, sucking moisture from pores. Phantom thirst claws the throat, Harlan downs warm water from a canteen, tasting canvas and minerals, visions of Brooklyn delis with seltzer taps dancing cruel. Radio static crackles intermittent. Convoy Alpha, this is control. Winds calm at 5 knots. Tower status green. Beth's voice clipped, efficient. No chit-chat, no Godspeed. Just the machinery of Armageddon, oiled and inexorable. Midnight finds them at the Alamogordo cutoff. A chain-link perimeter materializing from the dark barbed coils glinting under Klieg's. MPs with K9s straining leashes. Shepherds snarling at the truck's shadow. Clearance barked, gates rasped open on oiled tracks, and they're swallowed into the compound. Quonset clusters huddled around the shot cab, generators humming like swarms of metal bees. The Trinity base camp squats humble, a cluster of tents and trailers, floodlit pads where seismographs tick and movie cams crank silent reels. Technicians in coveralls swarm as the deuce rolls to a halt by the assembly shed, faces streaked with windburn and worry, hands reaching for the tie-downs before the engine's tick dies. Easy with her, Harlan calls, vaulting down, boots crunching gypsum sand that glows faint phosphorescent underfoot. The squad unlashes the canvas slow, reverent, the gadget's bulk revealed in the flood's harsh mercy, its black carapace scarred by road dust, fins canted like a bird of prey grounded. A hush falls, broken only by the distant yip of a kit fox, as if the desert itself holds breath. Bainbridge stocky bespectacled, the electronics wizard emerges from the shed, rubbing sleep from eyes ringed purple. Harlan on time, good. He peers at the assembly gloved hand hovering over a wire cluster. Vibration logs from the dash cam, any anomalies? Ruiz hands over the strip chart, ink squiggles like an EKG of doom. Clean, sir, core temp steady at 102 Fahrenheit. They muscle the beast inside on dollies, the shed's doors swallowing it whole. Cavern of cork-lined walls and gantry beams, the air chilled by exhaust fans sucking alpha whispers. The Trinity Tower looms visible through slits, a skeletal steel figure 100 feet tall, guide against the wind, its shot cab a gondola of plywood and plate glass, wired for the end times. Bainbridge's team takes over threading the hoist cables, calibrating the X-bar switches that will drop the arming plug like a guillotine. Voss lingers at the threshold, watching sparks fly from a junction box, her face pale as the sand. It's real now, she murmurs to Harlan, voice threadbare. Not blueprints, not welds in the dark. He nods, throat tight, clapping her shoulder, solid, unyielding, the riveter's grit holding when equations waver. Dawn creeps reluctant. July 16th, painting the basin in hesitant rows. The squad bunked in a tent that smells of mildew and MRE tins. No sleep comes. Harlan lies on his cot, staring at canvas ripples, the desert's hush pressing like a palm. Outside, the tower creaks, wind song through struts and voices murmur. Fermi in his fedora, calculating last-minute yields. Kishikowski the explosive guru, packing with a slide rule like a rosary. At 500, the klaxon wails, a banshee keen that yanks them vertical. Breakfast is coffee black as sin, gulped in the mess tent amid briefings. Evacuate to south 10,000 bunkers at Campania Hill. Grove's voice over the field phone, tinny but iron, no rain in the forecast. Detonate 529.57 Zulu. The hoist begins at 4:45, cables whining as the crane lifts the gadget skyward, slow, inexorable, the bomb ascending its scaffold like a dark sacrament. Harlan watches from the truck bed, Voss beside him, Ruiz and Kowalski flanking, the squad a silent quartet etched against the false dawn. Up it goes, 20 feet, 50, the cab's silhouette sharpening, detonators dangling like umbilical cords. At 100 feet, it seats with a remote clunk, telemetry lights winking green across the board. The desert holds its breath, Joshua trees frozen, gypsum dunes sculpted still, while 120 miles north, Los Alamos physicists cluster around scopes, hearts hammering in sync. Sirens moan the 20-minute warning, then 10, the squad piling into the deuce for the bug-out, tires spinning sand as they flee to the bunkers. Radio squawk countdown, T-300, 180. Harlan grips the dash, pulse thundering louder than the engine, the tower shrinking rearward, a monolith against the paling sky. What if the barometer drops, lightning kissing the cab? What if the lenses sing true and the world cracks open at their feet? At T-60, the all-clear settles, a held-breath vigil in the peephole slits of Campania Hill. The clock ticks merciless, 30:10:5, and then, Oppie's voice over the speaker, calm as a confessor, Lord, these affairs are hard on the heart. The desert erupts, a flash brighter than 1,000 suns, searing retinas through smoked glass, then the roar, a cosmic bellow that shakes the bunker like God's own hammer on anvil. Sand fuses to trinitite glass in the cradle, a green scar blooming where the beast birthed its fire. The squad stares, transfixed, the shockwave rippling air to jelly, windows rattling in their frames. Did they forge salvation, or etch the first line of a eulogy for innocence lost forever? Echoes of the first fire. The shockwave rolls over Campania Hill like a tidal wall of thunder, compressing chests, rattling teeth in sockets, the bunker's concrete groaning as if the earth's marrow cracks. Harlan's palms slam the peephole slit, smoked glass cool against fevered skin, but it's the afterimage that burns deepest. A purpled ghost seared on retinas, the flash's imprint lingering like a lover's bruise. Outside, the desert convulses, sand plumes boiling skyward in a mushroom crown that claws 40,000 feet high, its stem a roiling column of orange and black, veined with lightning blue veins of ionized air. Trinitite blooms at ground zero, the crater's cradle fusing silica to glass in a verdant scar, 2,000 degrees of fury etching a testament no poet could verse. Inside the bunker, chaos erupts, cheers horses' hangovers, backslaps that sting like shrapnel, grown men weeping into sleeve stiff with gypsum dust. Fermi's team spills calculations from slide rules. Yield, 21 kilotons, plus or minus 2, numbers spat like curses or prayers. Oppenheimer stands apart, frame silhouetted against the slit, his face a mask cracked by the light, awe terror the destroyer glimpsed in his own mirror. It worked, he whispers, the words half to the void, half to Vishnu's shadow. Groves bellows triumph over the field phone to Washington, the gadget's gold. His bulldog jowls quivering, but Harlan catches the hitch, the general's cigar hand trembling as ash snows to the floor. The squad clusters tight, a knot of sweat and silence amid the roar. Ruiz whoops first, boyish, punching air till his dosimeter dances loose. We did it, holy mother, we lit the damn sun. But his grin falters, eyes wide as the plume's capstone, a roiling anvil pregnant with fallout. Voss leans against Harlan's shoulder, breath ragged, her riveter's hands scarred, steady, now fists clenched white. That was inside us, Joe, that fire. It was our welds, our threads. Her voice cracks, Detroit steel bending, and you can almost feel it then. The phantom heat blooming in veins, plutonium's kiss long after the torch cools. Kowalski crosses himself again, slower this time, murmuring Ave Marias in a baritone rumble that vibrates the bench. For the boys on Iwo, for the ghosts in the surf. But his eyes, shadowed under brow ridges like quarry ledges, betray the lie. Hanford's green puke rising in memory, the glow that won't fade. Harlan says nothing. He stares through the slit, the plume's heart still pulsing faint, a heartbeat of hellfire visible even at 10 miles. The air tastes of ozone and iron, acrid as blood on bitten tongue, and his mind reels back, not to Brooklyn delis or Eddie's model wings, but to the shop's midnight hum, the cores gleam under fluorescence. They birthed this. The Suicide Squad, welders and threaders turned equations to apocalypse, triumph, or the first sin in a chain reaction. Marie's letter crinkles unopened, a talisman against the roar fading to wind-whipped hush. The desert settles, spent, but the echo lingers, a subsonic thrum through rock, through bone, whispering, what next? Evac ends at 800, jeeps churning sand back to base camp, the squad's deuce trailing a dust tail like a comet's dirge. The tower stands defiant. Cab glass shattered to diamonds, struts bowed but unbowed, the shot hole a blackened maw exhaling steam. Technicians swarm it like ants on carrion, Geiger counters shrieking as they probe the trinitite crust, green-black panes sharp as betrayal warm to the touch. Don't step on it barefoot, Beth warns, half-jest, his white hair dusted opalescent. It'll etch your souls with history. Ruiz pockets a shard anyway, wrapped in rag, a trophy or curse. Voss slaps it from his hand, eyes fierce. Fool kid. That's not souvenir, it's poison. By noon, the brass converges. Groves by radio bellowing logistics from Los Alamos. Oppenheimer motoring south in a dust-caked Plymouth, his face haggard as a death mask. The squad's debriefed in the mess tent, canvas flaps batting like startled birds over Spam sandwiches and Joe that could strip paint. Core integrity 100%, Harlan reports, voice gravel over the notepad, scratches of a major with a crew cut like a nail brush. Tamper held, initiator sparked clean. Lenses converged, no blush. Grove's voice crackles approval. Damn fine, Tinian's waiting, Fat Man's twins shipping out tomorrow, you four back north prep the spares. Spares, the word lands leaden. Little boy's uranium heart beats in Tennessee tubes, but Fat Man's plutonium siblings, twins to Rufus, wait in the shops, hungry for the squad's hands. The return convoy north ghosts through twilight, the Jornada's flats now etched with phantom glow, every scrub shadow suspect. Harlan rides silent, lucky strike burned to nub between fingers, the plume's afterimage dancing in peripheral vision. Kowalski hums a Polish dirge at the wheel, low and mournful, while Ruiz and Voss murmur in the bed, her teaching him rosary beads, his fingers fumbling the knots. For the drop, she says, for the pilots, but whose souls, really? The Enola Gay's crew, sweating in flight suits over breakfast eggs, or the shadows on the tarmac below. Los Alamos greets them at midnight, floodlights carving the mesa like a stage for judgment. The machine shop's dark, but the assembly bays hum, shift change, fresh faces pale under masks, unaware of the fire their forebears unchained. Harlan's squad reports to the Quonset, where blueprints unroll like fresh wounds. Fat Man Mark II tweaks from Trinity's telemetry, thicker veins for stability, reinforced nose for the 31,000-foot freefall. Same drill, the foreman barks, a Yankee from Groton Yards with a pipe like Oppie's ghost. Core in 48 hours, no slop. But the squad knows this isn't prototype. This is payload created for the Pacific, bound for islands where Marines still claw sand for inches. Sleep claims them fitful in barracks that reek of boot polish and regret, dreams laced with flash and roar. Dawn brings the revelation, sharp as shrapnel, Oppenheimer in the mess tray untouched, his eyes hollowed by the bag of Ed Gita's weight. He pulls Harlan aside by the coffee urn, voice a threadbare whisper. The yield, it exceeded models. Hiroshima's chosen civilian heart to shatter will. Harlan's cup pauses mid-sip, Joe sloshing hot over knuckles. Civilian, doc, that's no sugar loaf. That's women, kids? Oppie waves it off, but his hand quivers. Target committees call Kaka the war's brain, spare invasion blood, yet the pause betrays him, the poet's fracture, now I am become death, and tomorrow, the sky falls. The squad dives back in, torches hissing hymns to haste. Harlan welds the second core's tamper at 400, flame kissing nickel in the Quonset's chill, sparks tracing arcs like falling stars inverted. Voss threads initiators till her eyes blur, Ruiz aligns jigs with calipers that slip on sweat-slick palms, Kowalski hefts reflectors heavy as guilt. Dosimeters climb 0, 5 rem 0.7, the squad shadows lengthening under fluorescence, ghosts in their own machine. Whispers filter from the hilltop labs, Truman's briefed in Potsdam, Stalin's spies chitter, the B-29 stage on Tinian, bomb bays yawning empty. By July 25th, the crates seal, 2 fat men, sisters to the Trinity beast, lashed to flatbeds under tarps that billow like funeral shrouds. The squad stands watch as MPs truck them east to railheads, then west to ports where destroyers prowl for U-boats long sunk. Harlan's hand lingers on the last crate, feeling the thrum through oak and lead, the beast's pulse quicken now, bound for baptism over bay. A radiogram crackles in, Enola Gay fueled, crew brief. Weather window clear over Honshu. As the convoy vanishes into dust, the mesa's wind rises keen, carrying fallout's faint chime from the south. Ruiz cracks first, voice small in the emptying yard. We ended it right, the war, Voss nods, but her eyes say fracture, Kowalski spits, turning away. Harlan stares east toward the dawn that hides no mercy, Marie's letter finally opened in his fist. Eddie's asking for planes again, tell him heroes come home. But heroes or harbingers? And when the second flash blooms over Nagasaki's haze, will the squad's welds hold the world or shatter it beyond mending? The Sky Falls. August 6, 1945. 3:15 hours, Tinian Island, Mariana Chain. The airstrip hums like a hive on the brink of swarming. B-29's line nose-to-tail under arc lights that buzz halos in the humid dark. Their silver bellies gaping, ground crews swarming with dollies and checklists. The scent hangs heavy, aviation gas sharp as cat piss, mixed with the brine off the reef and the faint, underlying rot of coral graves from the 44 landings. Enola Gay squats at the end of North Field, her right radials ticking cool, props still, but the bomb bay doors yawn wide. A maw hungry for the crate that's trundled up on a flatbed, MPs circling it like wolves on a lame doe. Harlan stands at the perimeter fence, the suicide squad ghosts in fatigue stiff with travel dust, shipped west on a fevered C-54 hop from Los Alamos 3 days prior. No fanfare for the welders, just a nod from Colonel Tibbets, the pilot's jaw set like a vice, his eyes flicking over them brief as a Morse blip. "Your handiwork," he says, voice clipped, Midwestern flat, gesturing to the crate. Fat Man number 1, 10,800 pounds of oak and lead, the squad's welds cradling its plutonium heart like a fragile egg of annihilation. Voss adjusts her cap, auburn curl escaping, her face gaunt under the lights, nights blurred by Tinian's tin roof shacks, dreams of Trinity's plume chasing her through palm fronds. "She'll fly true, sir," she replies, but her hand trembles on the fence wire, dosimeter clipped to her collar beeping a lazy protest against the island's ambient rad from X-ray tubes. You can almost taste the salt on your lips then, the Pacific's breath heavy with monsoon promise, while the crew loads. Tibbet's 509th Composite Group, faces young as Eddie's but etched with the weight, Captain Lewis the weaponeer double-checking the arming plug with gloved fingers that shake just once. Lieutenant Morris R. Jepson, the safety officer, threading the selenium bridge like a priest with relics. The crate hoists slow, cables creaking, the bomb sliding home into the bay with a resonant thud that vibrates through Harlan's boots. Kowalski mutters a Polish oath, crossing himself furtive. Ruiz stares wide-eyed, the Bronx Kid now, a man whispering, "That's our baby Joey, dropping hell from heaven." But Harlan's silent, gut roiled like a storm-tossed keel, Marie's latest wire burning in his pocket. Truman's on the radio. "Wars end soon, love you home." The squad's billet is a Quonset near the strip, walls sweating condensation, cots sagging under mosquito netting that does nothing for the ghosts. No sleep comes as engines cough to life at 2:45, Superfort's warming for the long haul, 2,000 miles over open blue to Iwo's relay, then Honshu's haze. Enola Gay taxis first, her props a whirlwind that flattens fronds, the ground crew scattering like chaff. Harlan slips out at dawn's false promise, the squad trailing wordless to the hardstand where Tibbets pauses at the hatch, flight suit unzipped to waist, a lucky dangling unlit. "For the boys on the islands," he says, meeting Harlan's eye, steel on steel, no flinch. "Your welds ended." Then he's gone, swallowed by the cockpit, the bombardier calling clear. As throttles advance, the big bird lumbering down the strip, lifting heavy into the trades, bomb bay doors snicking shut over the beast. The wait stretches eternal, Tinian's sun climbing merciless, baking the airstrip to a skillet. Radios crackle in the ops shack, static lace bursts from the formation. Enola with great artiste and necessary evil, the instrumentation ship and photographer's shadow droning west at 200 knots. The squad huddles on crates, Voss sketching bomb profiles in the dust with a stick, Ruiz cracking wise about pinup girls to mask the tremor, Kowalski whittling a crucifix from palm husk. Harlan paces, chain-smoking till his fingers yellow, the Jigers tick a metronome of madness. Whispers filter from brass tents, target committees pick Hiroshima, the army depot sprawl, 350,000 souls in a river delta bowl, bridges and barracks cheek by jowl with schools and shrines. To shock the emperor's spine, Groves wired from DC, his bulldog bite gone hoarse. But Oppie's shadow looms in memos, the bomb's a hammer on civilians, God help us. 9:15 local, the relay from Iwo crackles clear, visual on Honshu. Weather 3/10 green board. The squad freezes, breath sinking to the speaker's hum. Harlan's mind fractures, Brooklyn stoops in summer haze, Marie hanging wash while Eddie chases fireflies, then flash to the shop, torch flame kissing plutonium, sparks like the souls they'll unmake. 8:15 Hiroshima time. Enola climbs to 31,000 feet, the beast's plug arm now, barometric fuses ticking like a doomsday clock. Tibbet's voice calm as Kansas wheat, bomb away. 60 seconds of freefall, the lenses cradling the core, Harlan's tamper ring compressing fate, then the spark. Krytron's fire, composition B detonates in symmetric fury, plutonium imploding to critical mass, neutrons cascading in chain rebellion. The ops shack erupts at 9:55 Tinian, a radio man's shout. Flash confirmed, mushroom rising. Cheers, ragged backslaps, but the squad stands rooted, faces ashen under the fan's lazy whirl. Voss whispers a Hail Mary, beads clicking, Ruiz pukes into a bucket, the kid's bravado shattered like mock-up glass. Kowalski's crucifix snaps in his grip, splinters drawing blood. Harlan stares at the speaker, the plume's description crackling through. 1,800 feet above Shima Hospital, 20 kilotons blooming, a fireball 1,200 feet wide swallowing the delta, wooden tenements to ash, the river boiling steam, shadows etched on concrete where flesh once stood. 80,000 gone in the blink, the rest seared, blinded, stumbling through firestorm rain laced with black fallout. Enola returns at 1500, silver skin untouched, Tibbet's crew spilling out to debriefs and whiskey. Like kicking a beehive, the bombardier quips, but his eyes are hollow, the drops vertigo lingering. The squad meets them at the hardstand, Harlan clasping Lewis' hand, the weaponeer's grip limp. She flew straight, welds held. Lewis nods, voice thick. Held all right, city, it's glass and ghosts now. No triumph, just the hush of men who birthed thunder and heard its cry. Night falls sticky, Tinian stars smeared by humidity, the squad bunked but sleepless, radios murmuring Tokyo's frenzy, NHK silent, then martial bluster cracking. Hiroshima burns, the Emperor's Council fractures, but the war machine grinds. Zeros scramble from Kyushu fields, kamikaze ghosts and plywood fuselages. Grove's wire hits at 200 August 7th. One down, Nagasaki queued, no quarter. The squad's pulled into the cycle, inspecting Fat Man 2 in the assembly hut, tweaks from Hiroshima's telemetry. Vein stiffeners, a boron curtain to hush stray neutrons. Harlan's torch hisses again, flame steady but soul adrift, welding the beast's twin as Voss threads wires that will sing death anew. August 9th dawns typhoon teased, clouds scudding like smoke signals. Boxcar lifts at 300, the B-29's bay heavy with Nagasaki's doom, Kokura the primary, Mitsubishi steelworks in the crosshairs, but fate's whim clouds it over, sparing the arsenal for the secondary. Urakami Valley, Christian heart of the city, cathedral spires mocking the bomb's mercy. 11:02 local, release at 28,900 feet, 43 seconds to bloom, the squad huddles in ops again, breaths bated as thunder reports. Direct hit, yield 21, flash to the horizon. 40,000 vaporized, the valley a cauldron, hypocenter over a schoolyard where children drilled for air raids. The double blow lands like twin hammers on Anvil, Japan. Surrender whispers from the palace, Hirohito's voice trembling over radio waves. Endure the unendurable. But for the squad, as cheers echo hollow in the Quonset, the revelation cracks deep. They forged the fire that ended the war in ash, spared a million invasion dead, but at what leisure of souls? Harlan crumples Marie's wire, finally reading, war's over, papers say the end. Yes, ended. But the scars, Alpha burns, Phantom flashes, welds in the world's new wound, they'll smolder long after the banners fall. As VJ Day dawns September 2nd on the Missouri's deck, the squad ships stateside, the beast's echoes fatting over the blue. But in Brooklyn's arms, will Harlan's hands, calloused, glowing faint, ever unlearn the flame? Or does the fire they birthed burn eternal, a suicide squad's gift to peace forged in perdition? Scars that glow. September 2nd, 1945. Tokyo Bay. USS Missouri's deck heaves gentle under a sun that beats like a victor's drum, her gray flanks scarred by kamikaze kisses, ensigns snapping in the trade winds that carry the faint, far-off char of Nagasaki's pyres. Harlan stands at the rail, dress blues chafing his neck like a too-tight collar, the squad arrayed beside him in ranks of khaki ghosts. Voss with her hair-pinned military knee, Ruiz taller now but still boyish in the shoulders, Kowalski's bulk straining buttons, his crucifix tucked safe under shirt. The ceremony unfolds crisp, Japanese envoys in starched white, faces carved stone, signing the instrument on a teak table draped in green baize. MacArthur's voice booms over loudspeakers, today the guns are silent, but to Harlan it's a hollow echo, the world's roar traded for paper scratches. You can almost feel the salt crust on your skin then, the Pacific's endless lap mocking the finite toll. 405,000 American dead, 2 cities glassed, 200,000 Japanese souls unmade in fire's instant. The squad's hands calloused, ink-stained from endless logs, hang loose at sides, dosimeters long discarded but their ticks phantom in ears. Cheers erupt from the fleet, horns blaring triumph across the bay, but Harlan's throat closes, a welder's mask fogged by unshed heat. Marie's telegram crackles in his pocket, creased to tatters. Homecoming parade, Joe, Eddie's got a flag the size of the stoop. We won. The word tastes of solder flux and fallout, sweet bitter on the tongue. The voyage east drags eternal Liberty ships churning wakes that foam white as trinitite shards. Storms lash the convoy off Hawaii, waves slamming hulls like God's own hammer, and in the hold sway the squad unravels. Knights huddled over cribbage boards under bare bulbs, whiskey pilfered from the slop chest, burning paths to truths too raw for daylight. Ruiz cracks first, voice slurred in the bunk's gloom. I see 'em, Joey, kids in pigtails, shadows on the bridge. My jig aligned that drop. He punches the bulkhead, knuckles splitting red, the Bronx bravado bled to bone. Voss rocks slow, rosary beads clicking like Jiger chatter, her eyes distant as the delta she'd never seen. Threads held, but what we stitch, peace from screams. Kowalski drains his cup, face shadowed like Hanford slag, whispering of veins that glow in mirrors, cancers blooming quiet in the gut. We ended the war, Lena, but started something. The eggheads say more bombs coming, bigger. Harlan listens, silent sentinel, his half-deaf ear cocked to the engine's thrum, a dirge for the core he'd birthed in midnight flame. Dreams plague him, the shop's buzz, Oppie's pipe smoke veiling envy, the plume's crown cloying heaven. Awake he traces scars on his palms, weld burns faded yellow, but the new ones itch deeper, alpha ghosts seeping from pores. Grove's parting words echo from Tinian's strip. You mugs saved 1,000,000 boys, medals in the mail. Medals. Brass baubles for hands that forged widowmakers. Oppenheimer's shadow lingers too, a Potsdam dispatch in the ship's rag, the director grilled by congressmen, his death, quote, twisted to treason, security clearance yanked like a noose. We knew the devil, Oppie wired the squad private, but didn't guess his horns so sharp. Stateside hits like a cold slap, New York Harbor, October 45, the statue's torch mocking with liberty's gleam. Parades swallow them, ticker tape canyons down Fifth, crowds roaring for the 509th Silverbirds, but the Suicide Squad melts anonymous into the throng, welder, riveter, machinist, hauler, back to civvies before the confetti settles. Harlan steps off the L in Brooklyn at dusk, the air thick with pretzel steam and foghorn moans. Marie's arms a harbor he'd forgotten, warm, flour-dusted from the diner's rush. Eddie barrels in, 8 now, gap-toothed, grin wide as the bay. Pa, you build the big boom, teacher says it ended the bad guys. Harlan scoops him up, the boys weight anchor solid, but his throat knots on lies. Ship's kid, big ships for the boys to sail home. Marie's eyes search his, seeing the hollows, the tremor in hands that once steadied torches. That night in the tenements creak, he welds to her, slow bodies joining like tamper rings, but the seam leaks doubt. The squad scatters like fallout, Voss to Detroit. Riveting Cadillacs till the lines hum post-war chrome, but her knuckles scar anew, not alpha but factory acid, the itch traded for engines that roar without end. She marries a vet from Anzio, bears twins with eyes too knowing, whispers rosaries for Urakami's ghosts. Ruiz drifts west, Hollywood lots where he machines props for war flicks, fake bombs that bloom orange in real fire, his nights haunted by real plumes. Therapy couches in the 50s calling it shell shock till it fades to shrugs. Kowalski roots in Chicago mills, pouring steel for skyscrapers that pierce the glow, but Hanford's green haunts his dreams, liver spotted black by 55, the big pole dying slow in a VA ward, crucifix clutched as the monitors flatline. Forge the end, he rasps to Harlan's last visit, voice gravel to dust. But the fire, it welds us forever. Harlan lasts longest, the lone welder's grit unyielding. Brooklyn yards call him back, hulls for merchant queens that ply peace lanes, but the torch feels foreign now, flames tame, no serpent hiss of plutonium kiss. He rises foreman by 50, barking orders to greenhorns with steady hands, but evenings find him in the garage sketching jigs for model kits, Eddie's hobby turned Pa's penance. The boy grows aviator tall, MIT bound on GI dreams, but pauses at the door, 159 night duffel slung. Pa, you ever regret the war stuff? Harlan's pipe pauses, Oppie's ghost in the smoke. Regret, nah kid, we may need a break, but some welds, they scar pretty. Eddie nods, gone to jets that scream supersonic, while Harlan stares at newsreels. Test shots at Eniwetok, Bikini Atoll's glass green, the beast's children birthed from their forge. By 65, the scars show. Cough wet as slag, bones aching from phantom rad, the VA calling it occupational. Marie holds the vigil, her riveter's grip iron on his thinning frame, Eddie wiring collect from Florida launches. The end comes quiet, July 16th, 20 years to Trinity's dawn in a ward that smells of flux and finality. Harlan's eyes flutter to the window, desert mesas and memories glare. The squad's faces swimming up, Tommy's grin, Lena's fire, Mike's rumble. Suicide Squad, he breathes, a smile cracking dry lips. We lit the way home. Then the monitors hush, the welder's flames snuffed gentle, leaving only the world's glow brighter, harder, etched by their hands. The fire they forged ended the war in blaze, but peace, that's the eternal weld, holding fragile against the dark. And in Brooklyn stoops, Chicago forges, Detroit lines, echoes linger, sparks in the blood, reminding, from hell's heart came dawn's first light. End.